And I think, especially when it comes to engineering delivery, you've got your goal, you've got your end outcome that you're aiming for, and you need a plan to get there, but you need to be able to be flexible and roll with the punches on the way. If we don't have diverse people deciding what we build and how we build it, then we run the risk of not thinking about our customer base as a whole. I don't want everyone to think that you have to lead your technical path in order to be a leader. There are lots of leadership roles where you don't have to be managing people, but you're leading people, you're taking them on the journey, you're making decisions, which I think is a key thing that leaders do, but you don't have to be a people leader necessarily.
Welcome to the TechWaka Podcast, where we dive into the journeys of New Zealand's top tech leaders. Your host for today is Jakub, bringing you conversations with tech leaders and innovators from across Aotearoa. Join us as we uncover the experiences, challenges, and successes that shape our tech community.
Welcome everyone. Our guest today is Anna Cupples, who is a technology leader and a triathlete. She's not only an accomplished head of engineering at triathlon, but also completed multiple Ironman races. Hello Anna, how are you?
Hi, Jacob. I'm great. Thanks. Thank you for having me here.
I think we both are interested, at least, in Ironman and triathlon. I haven't finished an Ironman race, but I did a couple of triathlons in the past. How did you get to triathlons? What was your journey to get to Ironman?
Yeah, well, I will qualify that I'm probably an ex-triathlete. I haven't done a triathlon quite a number of years. I first got into it because in the 80s, when I was a kid, my dad started doing triathlons, and that was quite early. It was a pretty early, but I spent many weekends on the sideline cheering on Dad. And he did this great series of triathlon races where the spectators were able to enter for spot prizes. And so we often won VHS videos of The Little Mermaid and Billie T. James. I'm really probably showing my age now. And so that's how I learned about triathlon. And I did a bit of cycling racing at school. So I joined the triathlon club at that point and competed in a few team races then. But I really got interested in triathlon when I was living in Santa Monica, California, which is a pretty fabulous place to train and race. And I got involved in the Los Angeles Tri Club. And I was at that stage in my late 20s and early 30s. It was about a 10-year career. And so it was very much a lifestyle. I competed 7 Ironman distance races, which for any listener, what that is, it's a 1.8, oh gosh, now I can't even remember, 1.8K swim. Did I get that right?
I think so.
180K bike ride and a marathon, a 42K run. So it is a long time out there treating. So I did 7. I did 4 Ironman Topo, New Zealand Ironman, and Ironman Canada, Florida, and Coeur d'Alene, which is in Idaho, USA. And then quite a number of half Ironman races as training events and as social events. I know that sounds crazy. You would do a half Ironman as a social event, but with the Tri Club, and then we did lots and lots of sort of Olympic distance races, really fun ones in Las Vegas and places all over the States, which became, as I said, very much a lifestyle. And I also competed in a couple of age group world champ races in New Zealand and actually 3, New Zealand, Chicago, and London. And with my sister and with my father. So it was very much a family affair.
And while doing that, did you also work? Did you have full-time work as well?
Yes. Actually, I remember a point when, as you do when you're young in your career, I was working round the clock in a professional services capacity, and I did a few 100-hour weeks in a row. And my training, I think that was the time when I was in my late 20s. I thought I was invincible, and I realized how lack of sleep and lack of training can really affect you, because I went out and did a race and just could not keep up with my teammates. But at peak Ironman training time, I was training about 20 hours a week on top of a 40 plus hour a week job. So it was a very selfish lifestyle. I don't know how my father did it because he did it with 4 kids and my mum must have been a saint to support him in that. But I don't think I could have done it had I had at that stage of a family and, other commitments that meant I couldn't be out on my bike for 6 hours, in the weekend.
Oh, and tell me, what will be some of the learnings you bring from your triathlon journey races to your tech leadership?
Oh gosh, so many learnings. One of the big ones, I think, with triathlon or long distance triathlon or anything where you have to commit yourself and work in general is you spend a long time doing it. So you have to enjoy it. You spend a lot of time at work. So you need to enjoy it and you need to enjoy the people you do it with. It is an individual sport, triathlon, but I was part of a community and I very rarely trained by myself. So it was all about that camaraderie and enjoying it together and building relationships. And I think I take a lot of that to work to, spend a lot of time with these people. So why not build a relationship and enjoy? You don't have to be friends with everyone, but at least enjoy what you're doing. Obviously, discipline is a really big one, having goals. I think in the likes of an Ironman, you need to have a plan, right? You need to get day, but you also need to be able to be flexible because things don't always go to plan. You might get a flat tire. You might drop your Gatorade drink everywhere and you don't have any more. All those things can happen. Trip over. And you need to be able to roll with that. And I think, especially when it comes to engineering delivery, you've got your goal, you've got your end outcome that you're aiming for, and you need a plan to get there, but you need to be able to be flexible and roll with the punches on the way.
One thing, Anna, that came to my mind right now, from my experience with triathlon, was how self-awareness was important. And I think that's also, as a tech leader, as a leader, you need to be self-aware as well. Understanding that my legs today are not my legs yesterday. I had a great session yesterday. Today may not be the time to push. Today may be the time to relax, take a break. Yes. Understanding how my state influences my race, but also at work, how it influences people around me, my capacity to take information in or to produce something out. How do I show up and how I can have system around me? In training, do I take a nap? Do I, go for a walk instead of a run? Similar here, do I actually spend the time thinking, reading, doing, talking, and adjusting? I think that's important.
Yes, exactly. And having that balance. You can't just keep training. And that kind of also goes to pace, which is another thing. You cannot go full speed the whole way through because your body can't do it for that long, and then you can't take your nutrition that needs your energy. And similarly with leading engineering teams, you can't just have people going full speed around the clock. It will burn out. It's not sustainable. So finding that pace and balance, as you were talking about, those times when you might just need to sleep in, just snooze that 5 a.m. alarm. Yes. Yeah. There are just many learnings, I think, that you can take from anything you need to apply yourself to, particularly sport, where you have a goal and
a different dimension of Ironman races that we talked before we hit the record button was how, at least in my experience, how fascinating it is that in Ironman races you have pro triathletes and amateurs and the age groupers being at the same time at the same place and maybe not racing against each other, but actually participating in the race together. And often the pro racers, they would stay late till the night to welcome the last finishers at the finish line. And for me, this shows the whole equality or inclusion in the triathlon family. How do you think it kind of comes in the world of technology?
Yes, I think what you're talking about there is, that inclusion and that equality, but also there are diverse people that compete.
Yes.
If you look, particularly Ironman races, not everyone looks like an athlete. You can get through those races and arguably look like you're maybe not, maybe you're out of shape. You can be short, you can be tall, you can be big. And I think that it is quite an equalizing sort of thing to watch an Ironman race. And similarly, and it's a hot topic in the world of tech, diversity, equity, and inclusion. And so that's a nice segue into the topics that has, as you said, been a hot topic for a while and is something that we at TradeMe at the moment are really leaning into, especially women in tech, but also all sorts of diversity because they're not mutually exclusive. So yeah, that is an area I've been focused on, and being a woman in tech myself, and unfortunately still in a minority, it is something that I would love to be able to make a difference and actually see a significant change where the engineering or the tech community looks more like our community, our population as a whole.
Mm-hmm. And why do you think that's important? If someone is wondering, why are we talking about this? Why there's so much fuss about it? How would you explain it?
There is so much research out there that shows when you're building digital products, it's important to have diverse input because there is so much systemic and unconscious bias in everything we do. And I mean, AI being really big and being at the forefront of many people's minds now, a lot of learning models unless we are cognizant of it and we're thinking diversity, they do get that bias built into them. I think for TradeMe, our customer base is potentially every Kiwi, and that's diverse. So if we don't have diverse people deciding what we build and how we build it, then we run the risk of not thinking about our customer base as a whole. And that can be, I'm sure, applied to almost every industry, right? You might be looking at a subset, but we're all humans. And unless only a particular type of human does it as a customer, then you've got to think.
Yeah. And I think until you experience not being included, I think it can be hard to empathize, why it is important.
Yes. So glad you did that, because I think, unfortunately, I think most people have really good intent, but they don't. There's such ingrained behavior that people subconsciously reinforce stereotypes. And unfortunately, I still hear stories about that one woman engineer in the squad who gets left out of ceremonies, going for lunch, or is expected to take the notes or set up the meetings. And often I actually don't think the people who are enforcing that behavior, they don't realize that they're doing it subconsciously. That's one of the things that I think people can just take a second thought about, or call it out if you see it.
Oh yeah.
You can do that in a respectful and in a subtle way. Doesn't have to be confrontational, but yeah, unfortunately, I do still get surprised at hearing those stories, because you would expect that we've moved on a lot.
And what do you think? What could be some action that we take in tech in New Zealand that would bring us closer to include more women, to have more women in technology?
One of the things I think really helps is if you're going to take positive action to get more women in your organization, then it can become quite emotive. Can be an emotive topic because people can perceive that action as not fair to themselves. For example, a man might say, well, I'm not going to get that promotion because I'm not a woman, or something along those lines. But what we do is look at the data, because the data can take that emotion out of it. If you can use your data, and in the example at TradeMe, the key area we're leaning into is technical leaders, and in particular, sort of lead software engineer level, where we currently have 18 lead software engineers, and they're all men. So that data speaks for itself, right? There's no way you can get there unless there was some kind of systemic bias, and people can point to a pipeline problem, and we did some work to make sure it wasn't that. And so you can, if you look at your data, you can look at where the problem might be occurring, and then you can work towards improving it. And then you can look at your data again and see if that worked or if it didn't work. So I would say one of the things that has really helped us is by looking at the data and speaking to the data and using that to inform what you might try next and to inform whether you're making a difference.
Mm. And how would you respond to someone who feels that it is not fair to them? The example I had was when I was doing some of my studies back in Poland, and there was a scholarship that the city was giving. There was, I think, maybe 20 people who could get the scholarship. And women who were coming from the technical background, they would get additional points. And I remember I was close to getting the scholarship, but I didn't. And it made me angry. Like, I was really angry and I didn't see it as being fair. Fortunately, I did some thinking, and I was with people who explained it to me. And right now I'm all for it. And I understand the importance of it. But back then I was really angry, maybe even, at women in tech, because they were taking away money from me when I was in my early 20s. How could we convince and bring these people on the journey?
Yes, it is a hard one because people will always view it from their own stand, right? And it's fair enough to have those emotions, because when it affects you, you're quite right to have those emotions. I think, just going back again, I think it's got to be about, as I said, we can't get to these positions unless there has been something systemic, or we can't statistically be in this scenario unless we have a system that is creating the bias that is leading us to this place. So we need to do something about correcting that system.
I also wonder if there is something about setting the long-term goals, where we want to be and why it is important to be there.
Yes.
I remember when I was hiring for my engineering teams, basically from scratch in my current place, and I intentionally wanted to have trying to half men, half women. And, sometimes I would have to say no to certain candidates because I wanted to bring that in. And then, when I was later on, I think we almost got there. And when we were bringing new people in, I would always make sure that there was a woman involved in the recruitment process, so that we can bring that perspective into the recruitment process, so that we can have this. Now, utilize it. We have it. Let's utilize it. I think it's important to kind of almost design with this in mind.
Exactly. And there are so many what seem like fairly easy and small things that you can do that just help with reducing that bias. So as you said, always have a woman on the interview panel. Always, another one that we've done is making sure you're writing the advert in a way that studies show that men will apply for jobs if they feel they fulfill it. Can't remember the numbers. I'm terrible with remembering numbers, but something like, let's say, a portion of the criteria, whereas women will feel that they need to tick every single box. So just writing an extra line at the end of the advert saying, even if you don't feel you tick all the boxes, we value diversity. If you're interested, please apply. Little things like that can go a long way to helping get that diversity in your workforce.
Yeah, this is a fascinating example, because I remember when my wife was looking for a job here in New Zealand, and I was getting frustrated because she did not want to apply for some of the jobs.
Yes.
And when we got to specifics, she would show me a job ad and she would tell me that she did not qualify. And I said, well, I could apply for this job. Like, why wouldn't you? And I couldn't understand her. She couldn't understand me. And we actually, I remember finding similar research, and I was like, oh, okay. I can see now why she didn't want to apply for these jobs. For me, it was no brainer because there was no downside for applying, and she just didn't feel good enough, which was shocking for me.
Yeah. And it's not just things like that, that's a stat around women, but it's also, if you're looking for more cultural diversity, different cultures have different approaches and beliefs, and neurodiversity. You might have an interview panel that doesn't cater for different people too. So there are, it can be, I don't want to say a minefield. It's not a minefield, but it's just there are so many different avenues that you can go down to improve your diversity.
I also wonder, and that's a phrase I like to use. I think in corporate, we love to talk about hiring for culture fit. And I think that's very dangerous to hire for culture fit, because that's going to emphasize the culture we already have, the thinking we already have. I prefer to talk about hiring for culture and how can someone add and change our culture towards where we want to go. So we don't have enough, deep thinkers. Let's hire more deep thinkers so that our culture will shift towards deep thinking and reflection. We don't have enough women. Let's hire more women to shift that culture into that direction.
Yes, I read the same thing recently, and actually been talking about culture and rather than culture fit. Yes, yeah. Or even just they align with values, but they don't have to be a culture fit. So at least you get, you're getting the right behaviors. Yeah.
And how, imagine there are women in tech who want to go into leadership positions. Would you have any advice for them that could inspire them? They are now listening to Head of Engineering at TradeMe, one of the icons in New Zealand. What should they hear and keep in mind when thinking about leadership roles?
I'm a little torn with this question, honestly, because I think one of the potential mistakes we make a lot as women engineers, we encourage them to go into people leadership roles or facilitation roles, and not so much to continue on the technical path. And I think that's to do with the typical sort of maternal or woman traits that we have, natural traits and natural skills. And so I think we need to think of leadership not just being as people leadership or people management. There's also technical leadership. So one of the things that's quite dear to my heart is those non-technical skills that you need as a leader. However, I don't want everyone to think that you have to leave your technical path in order to be a leader. There are lots of leadership roles where you don't have to be managing people, but you're leading people, you're taking them on the journey, you're making decisions, which I think is a key thing that leaders do, but you don't have to be a people leader necessarily. I think the key advice that I would have given to my past self as a woman in tech is be more confident in my skills. And this doesn't necessarily apply just for women. I think I underestimated particularly a lot of the skills that I felt came quite naturally to me. And a lot of those are the non-technical type of skills, but also the technical. I was a decent developer when I did my development day. I think being more confident in them and sort of aligning to our conversation before about not having to tick all the boxes, go for things and trust my instincts. Trust that I can do things that I might not have done before and push myself out of my comfort zone. I think I always did that, but I could have done more. I could have taken more opportunity and sort of push myself into that leadership earlier.
That's a beautiful way to finish. Thank you, Anna. Thank you for sharing your time and your insights with us. I think it was a great conversation, a very important conversation to have and to share. Thank you.
Great. Thanks for having me.